The chain around my wrist buzzed with a small shock, and that is how I learned that I now belonged to someone else. I did not scream. I did not beg. I just looked up at the three aliens standing over the auction platform and memorized their faces. Because in my old life, on Earth, that is what you do when you meet new people who might matter later. You learn their faces first. Everything else comes after. The auctioneer, a thin creature with silver skin and too many fingers, called out a price. A woman with sharp eyes and a crown made of black metal raised her hand without even looking at me. Just like that, I was bought. Sold like a strange animal to House Vashtar, one of the richest noble families on this floating city they called the Bazaar of Threnna. They led me through glass hallways into a shuttle, and nobody spoke to me the whole way, because nobody expected me to understand anything. They thought I was a pet, a curiosity, the last of a newly discovered species called human, captured after our first meeting with the stars went wrong in ways I still do not like to think about. The woman with the crown was named Illyra Vashtar, matriarch of the house. Her two sons, Kaeth and Doran, walked beside her, already arguing about whether I would survive the week. Her daughter, Sethra, walked last, arms crossed, saying nothing at all. She was the one who looked at me the longest. I did not lower my eyes. That confused them more than anything. When we reached the estate, a tower of white stone rising over gardens full of glowing plants, they placed me in a room meant for pets, a bed on the floor, a bowl for food, a collar they expected me to wear without protest. I did not put on the collar. Instead, I did what any person does when they land in a new and dangerous place. I studied it. I watched the guards change shifts. I noticed which servant flinched when Kaeth raised his voice, and which one did not. I noticed that the old groundskeeper, a small creature named Fennec, limped on his left leg, and nobody had ever bothered to fix it. That night, when the house was quiet, I found the medical kit in the hallway closet, and I fixed Fennec's leg myself, using nothing more than steady hands and years of training from a life before all of this. He stared at me like I had performed magic. "Why," he whispered, "you owe me nothing." I did not have a clean answer then. I just said, "Because you're limping and I know how to help." News like that travels fast in a house full of servants who have never once been helped by anyone above them. Within a week, I was no longer just eating alone in my room. Fennec brought me warm bread in the mornings. A guard named Rennick, tall and quiet, started teaching me the layout of the estate, in exchange for a card game I taught him using scraps of paper. Even Doran's personal aide, a nervous little creature named Is, started leaving small gifts outside my door, terrified but curious. I did not plan any of this. I did not sit down and decide to build a group of allies inside a house that owned me. It just happened, the way breathing happens. Somewhere deep in my chest, an old and stubborn part of me had already decided that these people were mine to look out for, whether they liked it or not. Sethra noticed first. She started appearing in the hallway near my room in the evenings, arms crossed, pretending she was not looking for me. "You are strange," she said one night. "You should be afraid. You are the weakest creature in this house." "I am not afraid of you," I told her. "I am afraid of what happens if nobody in this house looks out for each other." She frowned like I had spoken in a language she almost understood, but not quite. Weeks passed. The house began to change in ways so small that even I almost missed them. Kaeth stopped raising his voice at the staff, mostly because Rennick had started standing a little closer to me whenever Kaeth was near, and Kaeth did not like how that felt. Doran began asking Is for her opinion, instead of simply giving orders. Illyra the matriarch watched all of it with narrow, calculating eyes, saying nothing, but missing nothing either. Then the trouble came, the way trouble always does, wearing a polite face. An Imperial inspector named Voss arrived at the estate with 2 armed escorts, claiming that House Vashtar was harboring an unregistered species classified as a possible danger. He said I needed to be surrendered for testing. Illyra refused, calmly, the way nobles do when they are hiding fear behind good manners. Voss smiled without warmth. You misunderstand, he said. This is not a request. That night, 3 armed figures came over the garden wall. I woke to the sound of glass breaking 2 floors down. Every instinct I had ever trained went cold and sharp at once. I did not think about escape. I did not think about hiding. I thought about Fennec sleeping in the servant quarters near the kitchen, and Is alone, in her small room by the east wing, and Sethra, who always slept with her window open because she liked the night air. I moved before I even decided to move. I found Rennick already awake, weapon in hand, guarding the hallway near the family's rooms. He looked at me, and did not ask why I was there. He simply nodded, like he already understood something I had not said out loud. Get the family to the safe room, I told him. I will handle the east wing. You cannot fight them, he said. You have no training weapon. I do not need one, I said. I need 5 minutes and a working brain. The intruders were not soldiers. They were hired hands, careless and overconfident, expecting an easy job against a house full of soft nobles. They did not expect a human who had spent years learning how to move through dark buildings without being seen, how to use shadows and simple objects as tools, how to disable a threat without needing a single weapon. I used what the house gave me, a rope from the garden shed to trip the first intruder near the fountain, a locked door and a jammed latch to slow the second one down long enough for Rennick to reach him, a loud alarm bell in the kitchen to draw the third one into a hallway where Fennec, of all people, was waiting with a heavy iron pan and more courage than anyone expected from an old groundskeeper with a bad leg that used to be worse. By the time Illyra's private guards arrived in full force, the fight was already over. Voss's hired men were restrained, embarrassed, and very confused about how a house full of servants, and one so-called pet, had defeated them without a single serious injury on either side. Voss himself arrived late, furious, only to find me standing calmly in the main hall with Sethra beside me, Is clutching a lantern with shaking hands, and Rennick guarding the door like he had always belonged there. This is impossible, Voss said, looking at me like I had grown a second head. It is unregistered livestock. It should not be capable of this. An older woman stepped forward from Voss's own escort, a scholar wearing the robes of the Imperial Archive. She had been quiet the whole time, watching everything with sharp, careful eyes. It is not livestock, she said slowly. I have read the old reports from First Contact. Humans do not simply obey a hierarchy. They build one, wherever they are placed, and then they defend it, as if it were their own blood. It does not matter if they are a prisoner, or a guest, or a pet. Given enough time in any group, a human will quietly turn that group into something they will protect with everything they have. Voss stared at her, then at me, then at the household standing united behind me, without a single command given. You are saying, he said carefully, that this creature has already claimed this entire house. I am saying, the scholar answered, that this house already belongs to him, in every way that matters, whether Lady Vashtar signed a paper for it or not. Illyra Vashtar, who had said almost nothing this whole time, finally stepped forward. She looked at me for a long moment, the same way she had looked at me on the auction platform, except now there was no calculation left in her eyes, only something closer to respect, and maybe something a little like relief. Leave my house, she told Voss, her voice steady and cold, before I forget that you are a guest here. Voss left without another word, taking his embarrassment and his soldiers with him. That should have been the end of it, but 2 days later, a rival house sent a formal offer, a very large sum of money, asking to purchase me for themselves. I watched Illyra read the offer at the long dining table, her sons on one side, Sethra on the other, Fennec pouring tea like he had done 100 times before, except now he did it without flinching, without fear, like a man who finally felt safe in his own home. Elira folded the letter without even finishing it. "Tell them no," she said simply. Nobody asked her to explain. Nobody needed her to. I sat at that table, not as a pet, not exactly as family either, but as something the household did not have a clean word for yet. I thought about the auction platform, the shock collar, the silver-skinned auctioneer who had sold me like an object with no name. I thought about how strange it was that the very thing they bought me to be owned by had somehow ended up belonging to me instead, heart first, without either side ever signing a single paper for it. Somewhere out among the stars, more human ships were drifting, more human survivors were being found, and I wondered, quietly, how many other noble houses across this galaxy had already made the same mistake House Vashtar made. They thought they were buying a pet. They had no idea they were adopting a family.